I should have realized something was wrong the moment James suggested brunch at the Ritz. In a decade of marriage, my husband had always rolled his eyes at their overpriced eggs and the way the waiters hovered like we were royalty. But that Sunday, he was oddly insistent, smoothing his tie over and over, his hands shaking just enough for me to notice. "The whole family will be there," he said, voice too bright. "It's Mom's birthday. She deserves something special." I nodded, choosing not to mention the way he kept glancing at the clock, or how he barely touched his coffee. We arrived to find the dining room already buzzing with quiet conversation and the clink of fine china. Emma, our daughter, swung her legs under the table, her shoes barely brushing the plush carpet. Margaret, James's mother, sat at the head of the table, her silver hair perfectly styled, her pearls gleaming. Robert, his father, was pretending to study the wine list, though I knew he'd just order the house red. Lisa, James's sister, was running late as always. "Where's Aunty Lisa?" Emma asked, carefully folding her napkin the way Margaret had taught her. "She promised to show me pictures from her trip." "She'll be here soon, sweetheart," I replied, catching the quick, uneasy glance that passed between James and his mother. I tried to ignore it, focusing on helping Emma with her menu. Lisa breezed in 15 minutes later, her laughter floating ahead of her like perfume. She wore a designer dress I'd seen in the Saks window just last week. Odd, since she'd recently complained about being behind on rent. Sorry, she chirped, air kissing everyone's cheeks. Traffic was a nightmare. She slid into the seat next to James, their shoulders touching just a little too long. I felt that old, familiar unease settle in my stomach. Lisa had never liked me. From the first day James introduced us, she'd looked me up and down and said, "A kindergarten teacher? How quaint." She always managed to make me feel like an outsider, no matter how many family dinners I attended. The waiter came to take our orders, and I watched as Lisa chose the most expensive items on the menu, without even glancing at the prices. Margaret beamed at her daughter, pride shining in her eyes. "Lisa just booked another luxury property for her real estate portfolio," she announced to the table. I bit my tongue, remembering the tearful phone call last month when Lisa had begged James for help with her mortgage. He'd stepped out to take the call, but our walls were thin. "Mommy," Emma whispered, tugging at my sleeve. "Look what I found!" She held up a shiny gold credit card that must have fallen under the table. I recognized it instantly. It was James's executive card, the one he used only for business expenses. "Oh, that's mine," Lisa said quickly, reaching across the table. "Must have slipped from my purse." But Emma frowned, her little brow furrowing. "But it has Daddy's name on it, see?" She pointed at the embossed letters, her finger tracing James Parker, with the innocence only a child could have. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret's fork clattered against her plate. Robert suddenly became fascinated by his water glass. James, my James, looked like he might be sick. "Emma, sweetie," Lisa started, her voice trembling despite her attempt at sweetness. "That's not... Why does Aunty Lisa have Daddy's golden credit card?" Emma asked, louder this time, her clear voice carrying across the elegant room. "You said only Daddy uses the golden one for his big boy work stuff." My mind raced back to last week, when I'd been organizing James's home office. The bank statements I'd found tucked behind his old tax returns. Thousands in charges at high-end restaurants and hotels I'd never visited. The late-night business meetings that had become more frequent. The unfamiliar perfume lingering on his suits. "I can explain," James said, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled away, my fingers curling into fists in my lap. "Yes, James," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Please explain why your sister has your business credit card, the one your firm issued for client meetings and company expenses." Lisa's face lost its practiced composure. "It's not what you think. What I think," I cut in, "is that there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for why my husband's credit card is in his sister's purse. Just like there's probably a reasonable explanation for the $5,000 charge at Cartier last month, or the weekend booking at the Four Seasons when you were supposedly at a real estate conference in Chicago." Margaret cleared her throat. "Perhaps this isn't the best place." "No, Mother," I said, surprising myself with the ice in my voice. I think brunch at the Ritz is the perfect place to discuss how your daughter has been using my husband's company card. After all, isn't this exactly the type of place where they've been meeting? Emma looked between us, her small face clouded with worry. Did I do something wrong, Mommy? No, baby, I said, smoothing her hair. You did exactly right. Sometimes adults need little angels like you to help them see the truth. I stood up, my chair scraping against the polished floor. Emma, sweetheart, let's go get some ice cream. I think the grown-ups need to have a very serious conversation about credit cards and family loyalty. Sarah. Please. James reached for me again, but I stepped back. Keep the card. Lisa, I said, helping Emma out of her chair. I'm sure you and James have plenty more charges to discuss with his firm's accounting department. And Margaret, happy birthday. I'd say enjoy your brunch, but I have a feeling appetites might be a bit spoiled. As I walked out of the restaurant, holding my daughter's small hand, I could hear the heated whispers erupting behind us. My phone was already buzzing in my purse, probably James, trying to do damage control. But all I could think about was the proud way Emma had shown me that card, not knowing she had just exposed a betrayal that went far deeper than unauthorized credit card charges. Mommy, Emma said as we stepped into the bright Sunday morning. Can I have chocolate ice cream? I smiled down at her, fighting back tears. You can have whatever flavor you want, baby. And then maybe we'll go visit Grandma Julie for a few days. Would you like that? She nodded, skipping beside me, already forgetting the tension she'd left behind. But I knew this was just the beginning. Once I dropped Emma at my mother's, I had some serious digging to do, starting with those bank statements and ending with a visit to my lawyer. Sometimes it takes a child's innocent question to shatter the perfect facade of a family Sunday brunch. And sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen. The next morning, I sat in my mother's sunny kitchen, surrounded by stacks of bank statements and credit card bills I'd retrieved from our house while James was at work. My hands trembled as I highlighted each suspicious transaction, creating a paper trail of betrayal in neon yellow. Have you reached out to his firm yet? Mom asked, placing a fresh cup of coffee beside me while keeping one eye on Emma playing in the backyard. Not yet, I sighed, circling another charge at a high-end jewelry store. But I did call Susan from HR. You remember her from the company Christmas party? She's checking something for me discreetly. The transactions told a story I hadn't wanted to read. Regular Thursday night charges at Lalonde's, an intimate French restaurant across town. Weekend stays at luxury hotels when James was supposedly at real estate conferences with Lisa. Jewelry purchases that had never made their way to my jewelry box. My phone buzzed. You've been listed as James's spouse on his corporate hotel bookings for the past 6 months, Susan texted. Apparently, the firm's travel department needed a spouse's name for insurance purposes. Funny how that worked out, isn't it? I can explain. You know what the worst part is? I interrupted, feeling eerily calm. It's not even the money. It's not the lies. It's how you both sat across from me at every family dinner, watching me teach Emma about honesty and family values while you were making a mockery of everything I thought we stood for. Sarah, please. Lisa's composure cracked. You don't understand, James and I. Mom? Emma's small voice came from behind me. She must have come in through the back door. Why is Aunty Lisa crying? Lisa stepped forward, reaching for Emma. Sweetie, don't... I stepped between them, pulling Emma behind me. Don't you dare. Everything okay out here? My mother appeared, her face set in the stern expression that had terrified me as a teenager. Lisa was just leaving, I said firmly, and she's going to tell James that if he wants to discuss anything, he can do it through my lawyer. A lawyer? Lisa's eyes widened. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We can work this out as a family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family? You want to talk about family? How about we talk about how you and my husband have been playing house with company money, while I helped Emma with her homework and attended PTA meetings alone. Mommy Emma tugged at my shirt. Are you mad at Aunty Lisa because of the golden card? I knelt down to her level, smoothing her hair. No, baby. Mommy's mad because sometimes grown-ups make bad choices that hurt people they're supposed to love. Like when I took Tommy's crayon without asking. And you made me apologize. Something like that, I said, fighting back tears, but much bigger. Lisa made a choked sound. Sarah, what are you going to do? I stood up, keeping Emma's hand in mine. I'm going to do what I teach my kindergartners every day. Stand up for what's right and don't let anyone make you feel small. The firm, Lisa whispered. If they find out, they already know. I cut in. Susan's email wasn't just about the hotel bookings. The accounting department has launched an investigation. Apparently, mixing personal and business expenses is a big no-no, especially when you're trying to make partner. The color drained from Lisa's face. You didn't? I didn't have to do anything, I said. Emma's innocent question at brunch sent up red flags. The firm's travel coordinator was at the next table. Funny how karma works, isn't it? Mom? Emma tugged at my hand. Can I go back to my bubbles? Of course, sweetheart. I watched her skip away before turning back to Lisa. You should go. I believe you and James have some explaining to do at tomorrow's board meeting. As Lisa stumbled back to her car, my mother placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, watching Lisa's luxury car, probably paid for with James's credit card, disappeared down the street. You know what? I actually am for the first time in months. Things are finally clear. My phone buzzed again with a text from James. The firm called. We need to talk no. I deleted the message without responding and went to join Emma in the backyard. She greeted me with a soapy smile, her small hands creating perfect shimmering spheres that floated away on the breeze. Mommy, look, this one looks like a heart. I watched the bubble rise and burst, just like my marriage. But unlike that fragile sphere, I wasn't going to disappear quietly. James and Lisa's carefully constructed world of lies was about to pop, and I had front row seats to the show. Make another one, baby, I said, sitting down beside her. Mommy could use some bubble magic right now. 3 weeks later, I sat in my lawyer's office reviewing the final divorce papers. The firm's investigation had revealed far more than just unauthorized credit card use. James and Lisa had been running a complex scheme using company resources to flip properties and pocket the profits. Their Thursday dates at Lank have been meetings with potential investors, all billed to the company under the guise of client dinners. The firm is pressing charges, my lawyer, Patricia, explained, sliding another document across her desk. They're offering you a separate settlement since you helped expose the fraud, albeit unintentionally. I glanced at the figure and almost choked on my coffee. That's generous. They're trying to avoid a scandal. A partner and his sister-in-law disappropriating funds. The press would have a field day. My phone lit up with a text from Margaret James's mother. She'd been surprisingly quiet since the brunch incident, but her message made my heart skip. I found something you should see. Can we meet? An hour later, I sat across from my soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law at Asmal Cafe, watching her hands shake as she pushed a manila envelope toward me. I found these while cleaning out Lisa's old room, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They're from 15 years ago before you met James, Innsworleters. Dozens of them exchanged between James and Lisa during his first year of law school. They weren't siblings' casual correspondence. They were love letters. They're not Margaret struggled with the words. They're not actually related. Robert and I adopted Lisa when James was away at boarding school. We never told anyone. It was easier to pretend she was our biological daughter. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot. Do they know? When I married James, did they know? Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. They agreed to end things when James met you. I thought we all thought it was over until it wasn't. I finished feeling strangely detached until they started their little business venture. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I should have told you years ago. I carefully put the letters back in the envelope. No, Margaret. They should have told me before I walked down the aisle. Before I had Emma. Before I spent 10 years building a life on lies. Emma. Margaret's voice cracked. She's the only innocent one in all this. And she's the one who brought down their house of cards with a simple question. He sighed, almost laughing at the irony. Out of the mouths of babes, right? Later that evening, as Emma, I finished packing the last boxes in our new apartment. She found an old family photo album. Mommy, can we still keep these pictures? I sat beside her on the floor, looking at snapshots of happier times, or what I thought were happier times. Of course we can, baby. They're part of our story, even the ones with Daddy and Aunty Lisa. Yes, I said, closing the album gently. Sometimes we need reminders of the past to appreciate our present. My phone buzzed with an email from Patricia. The divorce was final. James had agreed to all terms, likely hoping to avoid any more scrutiny before his criminal trial. Lisa had apparently fled to Europe, leaving him to face the consequences alone. Mommy, Emma said, pulling me from my thoughts. Can we get ice cream like we did after brunch that day? I smiled, remembering how a simple dessert run had become our ritual for handling big changes. Sure, baby. But first, help me hang this up. I pulled out a framed piece of Emma's artwork, a bright, colorful drawing of just the two of us surrounded by hearts and flowers. She'd made it at school last week when asked to draw her family. It's perfect right here, I said, hanging it in our new living room. Just like us. As we walked to the ice cream shop, Emma skipping ahead and chattering about flavors, I thought about how sometimes the worst betrayals can lead to the best beginnings. My 5-year-old's innocent question had shattered our family's carefully constructed facade, but from those broken pieces we were building something stronger, something real. My phone buzzed one last time. Another text from James. I never meant to hurt you. I deleted it without responding, and watched Emma press her nose against the ice cream shop's window, her breath fogging the glass as she pointed out all the flavors she wanted to try. Can I get 2 scoops, Mommy? Pretty, please. You know what? Make it 3, I told the server, smiling at Emma's delighted gasp. We're celebrating. What are we celebrating? I thought about the settlement money that would put her through college, about our fresh start in our cozy apartment, about the weight of lies finally lifted from our shoulders. We're celebrating truth, baby, I said, accepting our ice cream cones and new beginnings. As we sat on a nearby bench, ice cream dripping down our fingers in the warm evening air, I realized that sometimes the most devastating revelations come from the purest sources. My daughter's simple question about a credit card had unraveled a decade of deception, but it had also set us free. Mommy, Emma said, chocolate ice cream smeared across her chin. I like our new home better. It feels more like us. I wiped her face with a napkin, my heart full. Me too, baby, me too. Because sometimes it takes a child's innocence to show us the way forward.